try to help other countries stand up against aggression from Russia. I mean, President Biden's interventions in Ukraine to try to stand them up as a democracy and stand them up against corruption have now been weaponized and boomeranged against him as if he was the corrupt one and he was the problem there. I wonder, having lived through that and seeing how it's being put in a funhouse mirror now, how that feels to you and what you think the American people should understand about that time.
Well, we can talk about the time, but let's for a second talk about the tactic. What President Trump is doing, we've seen him do time and time again, and it's actually a brilliant, if really devious tactic. And that is, he takes whatever is his greatest weakness being that all America views him practically as corrupt. They see him as dealing financially to his own benefit and using the presidency for that. They see his kids running around getting sweetheart deals for the Trump empire or their clothing line or whatever it is, from countries like China issuing licenses for Ivanka's latest line of whatever. And he tries to turn that weakness into his perceived opponent's weakness. Nobody ever, in the many years Joe Biden has worked in Washington, tried to label him corrupt. He's anything but. He was one of the poorest members of the Senate throughout his tenure. But this is Trump's effort to jujitsu and to deny, deflect, lie. And what he has now is the backing of a Republican Party that seems to have lost its way completely. You said, what was it, comatose or anesthetized?
They were volunteered for general anesthesia till after the Sunday show.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be long after the Sunday shows.
Yeah.
But with respect to Ukraine, this was a case where the Vice President of the United States was acting on behalf of U.S. government policy, transparently articulated at the request of the President, consistent with bipartisan policy emanating from Congress, consistent with the agreements we had with our European partners and the IMF that were together with us in trying to root out corruption in Ukraine at the same time as we were trying to provide the new Ukrainian government with the economic support it needed to stabilize. So we're giving them this money, we, the Europeans, the United States, the international financial institutions, and we want to be sure that it's not going down a rat hole. That's U.S. government policy. That's what Joe Biden was pursuing. In contrast to Donald Trump, who was pursuing his own personal political interests and trying to leverage our military assistance, almost $400 million, and a White House visit to a brand new president of Ukraine who's got Russian troops on his territory 5 years in and a hot shooting war. And we're using that to undermine this guy unless he manufactures some bogus dirt on Joe Biden. There's a huge difference there. And this is another effort by Trump to try to create some absolutely false equivalency. Trump hides the records of his conversations. Biden's were out in the open and he talked about them publicly, and they were part of U.S. government policy. There's absolutely nothing similar here. And what we need to be worried about is that we have, frighteningly, a president of the United States who is not pursuing America's national security interests, in fact, taking steps contrary to our interests in order to benefit himself and his reelection. And he's inviting countries like Ukraine, but adversaries like China, as he did Russia in 2016, to get involved on his side in our election campaign. And then he's sending folks like Bill Barr around the world to our closest allies.
To try to exonerate Russia for what they did in 2016?
To try to exonerate Russia, but more importantly, to convey to them that they have to play ball with Donald Trump's effort to extort information for his political purposes if they want to remain in our good graces. So we're extorting both our our allies, and we're getting or soliciting help from our adversaries. It's crazy, and it's dangerous.